This is a supplementary video to Chapter 6. We're working with structure class words. Specifically, we're looking at conjunctions. So in this slide, we're going to work with punctuation and how we punctuate sentences with conjunctive adverbs, subordinate conjunctions, relative conjunctions, and coordinate conjunctions. I think I got them all. All right, let's start with some very basic stuff here. Sentence 1 here is a comma splice. A comma splice is where you connected two sentences with simply a comma, and a comma just isn't strong enough to do that job. And the second sentence is a fused sentence or run-on sentence, as you may have learned the terminology differently there. And it is where you have two sentences simply strung together with no punctuation at all. So one of the ways that you can correct the error of the comma splice and the run-on sentence is by using one of the coordinate conjunctions along with a comma. And the coordinate conjunctions, remember, are the fanboys. We said, here we go, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. See how we have fan boys. Cute, right? All right. So here we go. It is very humid, comma, yet Joe decided to go for a jog. So if you're connecting with a coordinate conjunction, a comma is placed before the conjunction, and that essentially is a compound sentence. And that comma is there simply as convention. Sometimes if the two clauses you are connecting are very, very short, you can forego it, but it's never wrong if you're looking at some good old prescriptive grammar to put that comma in place. Another way you can correct these two errors, the comma splice and the run-on sentence, is with a subordinate conjunction. So remember those? They look a lot like prepositions, but they introduce whole clauses. Words like before, since, because, if, after, while, as if. So your first step is to choose one of the clauses to emphasize. Joe decided to go for a jog. So let's say that we want to emphasize that particular clause. That's going to be the main clause. The other clause we're going to subordinate, which means we're going to make it less important. It's going to just turn into an adverb. And remember, adverbs are optional. So we're shifting the meaning of the sentence here. There's a little semantic play involved when you are going to render one of the two sentences into a dependent clause. So its significance will be reduced by the addition of the subordinate pronoun. So let's see, here we go. What I did was, remember, Joe decided to go for a jog as our main sentence. So I took the other sentence, it was very humid, and I put the word although in front of it to make this into a subordinate clause. And it's functioning as an adverb. Now you could also stick the adverb, let's go back. You could also stick the adverb at the end of the sentence. It doesn't matter, but do note the punctuation. And again, this is one of those conventional rules of grammar. If the subordinate conjunction, the subordinate clause comes first in the sentence, you need a comma separating it from the main part of the sentence, from the main independent clause. However, if you put the subordinate clause second, you do not need any punctuation whatsoever. If you put a comma there for effect, you could, but technically speaking, there's no need for a comma when that comma is introducing a subordinate clause that comes second in a sentence. Subordinate clauses, as I said, function as adverbs. So let's look at some other examples of this sentence where we have some adverbs thrown in just to show you. And we talked before about how you might have learned not to begin a sentence with a subordinate conjunction and how it actually is okay as long as you follow through. So yesterday, simple adverb, Joe decided to go for a jog. In the evening, Joe decided to go for a jog. For some reason, Joe decided to go for a jog, although it is very humid. Joe decided to go for a jog. So in each of those four sentences, we've stuck an adverb in the beginning that gives us information about time or place or manner. And that's what subordinate clauses do. They provide the same kind of information as adverbs. So now remember, conjunctive adverbs are sort of like conjunctions in that they join, they link together clauses, but they're like adverbs in the kind of information they provide. So here's a list of some common conjunctive adverbs. However, therefore, nevertheless, for example, moreover, on the contrary, consequently. Conjunctive adverbs, as I said, they work like conjunctions in that they connect, and they connect independent clauses. So here's an example. It is very humid, and then you want to put in the conjunctive adverb. That works logically. Nevertheless, Joe decided to go for a jog. And look how I've punctuated here. I have a semicolon here. And the semicolon is used either if you have a long series of items that you need to separate because it contains commas within it, or the other instance in which a semicolon is used is to connect two independent clauses that are closely related. So that's why we have the semicolon here. Then we have the conjunctive adverb, and then we have the comma. But you could keep this same structure and move the word nevertheless around, since it works like an adverb. So you could say it is very humid, semicolon. Joe, comma, nevertheless, comma, decided to go for a jog. So that you've got some stylistic options. You might also want to put a period here and then introduce the next sentence with the conjunctive adverb. It still is serving to link these two thoughts semantically. So conjunctive adverbs, as I said, they work like adverbs in the kind of information that they can convey, and they can move around. So what I was just talking through for you, here it is, if you want to see it written out, where we've moved the word nevertheless. We've replaced the conjunctive adverb. So if you're trying to get straight in your mind, what's the difference between a conjunctive adverb and a subordinate conjunction? Here are some differences. So I already told you that subordinate clauses that contain the subordinate conjunction can appear at the beginning of a sentence, like here, or at the end of a sentence. The clause containing the conjunctive adverb, however, always comes second. So you can say, it is very humid, nevertheless, Joe decided to go for a jog. But you could not say, and excuse my typo, it's a pretty funny one. Nevertheless, Joe decided to go for a jog or job. It is very humid. That doesn't make any sense. So that's a difference, that you can flip the subordinate clause to the end, but the clause containing the conjunctive adverb must always come second. It can't come at the beginning. Here's another major difference between conjunctive adverbs and subordinate conjunctions. The subordinate conjunction cannot move within the clause in which it appears. So we said how the word nevertheless could bounce around within the second sentence, although is stuck before the clause that it's connected to. So you could say, although it is very humid, Joe decided to go for a jog. You could move the whole clause, but the word although must be attached. It is very humid, and it must come first. You could not say, it is, although very humid, Joe decided to go for a jog, because that just doesn't make any sense. So you can see the difference there, that subordinate conjunctions do not function like adverbs. They are not mobile in the same way. So there are a few other ways that we can correct the comma splice and fuse sentence. So we'll go over them. One is you can simply use a period. That's fine. If you were a writer who tends to write with a lot of comma splices and run-ons, you probably wouldn't want to correct them all this way, or your writing would end up sounding very juvenile. You can use a semicolon without the conjunctive adverb, particularly if the two sentences are very closely related and you want to keep them together without having that word that links them. So that's perfectly acceptable. You can also use relative clauses. You can turn one of the clauses into an adjective clause or phrase, depending on the sentence. So we had that it was very humid and Joe decided to go for a jog. So what I did here is we took the second sentence and we turned it into a relative clause. And we gave it, remember, the relative pronoun, and there's what it modifies. So we turned it into an adjective clause. So we're creating complex sentences. So here's a summary of what we just went over. So here's a different run-on. We can fix it with a conjunction, the word but, with a comma before it. We can fix it with a subordinate conjunction, where we have to pick one of the sentences to be the primary sentence. I picked, I ate a bagel for breakfast. And then the other sentence, although it was stale, becomes subordinate. It turns into an adverb. And remember, if we said, although it was stale, I ate a bagel for breakfast, you would need a comma after stale. You can use a conjunctive adverb. I ate a bagel for breakfast, semicolon. Unfortunately, comma, it was stale. And we can fix it with a semicolon. I ate a bagel for breakfast, semicolon, it was stale, if you just want to keep them together. And you can fix it with a period. I ate a bagel for breakfast, period, it was stale. And you can use a relative pronoun. I ate a bagel, which was stale, for breakfast. So stylistically, there are a number of things that you can do to fix this problem, the problem of the fused sentence and the comma splice. Here's a little bit of practice. If you want to do this, I actually have used this for a freshman class before. So if you want to pause and try these out and then run them by me, there will be a section like this on the next quiz that you'll have. You'll have to go in and correct some fused sentences and some comma splices. So here's some good practice. I'm not going to sign it. I don't have answers posted because there's so many varieties of responses. But if you want to do this and send it to me as an email or in a Zoom session, if you'd like me to go over them, I would be very happy to do that. All right, so that's our supplementary video for Chapter 6. I'll talk to you guys soon.